Hello, everyone. I'm Lori Costu, Chief Diversity Officer and Director of People Strategy at Ford Motor Company. Today, to kick off Women's History Month, I have the privilege of speaking with an impressive group of women who are making some history of their own in their own respective fields. Each was featured in a content series sponsored by Ford Motor Company called Women Who Power America Forward. This is about celebrating women everywhere who are out there building, shaping, and moving our country forward. So welcome, ladies. We have with us today Queen Anune, a deputy fire chief in a major U.S. city, Adrienne Bennett, America's first female African-American master plumber and the lead plumbing contractor in the Michigan Central train station in downtown Detroit, which will soon be home to the Ford Mobility Hub. Raquel Garcia, the director of Southwest Detroit Environmental Vision, a nonprofit that also maintains a community garden in downtown Detroit. And Sandy Furshey, lab director of D4 Detroit in Ford Motor Company. And so I thought it'd be fun to do a little icebreaker. You all do amazing things worthy of your very impressive titles, but sometimes titles don't describe us as well as if we could name our own. So if you could give yourself a title, what would it be? So for instance, my title would be Passionate Advocate for People and Mama Bear. So Queen, let's start with you. What would your self-title be and why?
Wow, I would have to probably refer to myself as the janitor. I like to provide maintenance on broken systems. And I think the reason I use that similarity is because in government, there's often an assumption that everything that we're doing is correct. We tend to exclude certain groups that can provide a checkup to say, hey, that's not working. So I think when I enter the room, I'm not there to cause stagnation and progress, but I am there to give a reality check to, hey, we need to do something different to reach a different audience in a better way.
Beautiful. Adrienne, I don't know, we haven't had a chance to talk, but I had the chance to see you speak pre-COVID at the Ford African Ancestry Network Gala. And I was so impressed listening to this beautiful woman in a gorgeous gown, speaking her truth and telling her story. So can you tell us what your self-title would be?
I would have to say protector of God's nectar, which is water. As a master plumber, the one thing we are responsible for is to protect our drinking water, which a lot of us take for granted. And within the last 12 months with the COVID, the one thing they kept stressing besides wearing a mask was wash your hands. And if we don't have water, you cannot wash your hands.
So Raquel, what is your self-title and why is that?
I think my title would be something like community pollinator. We often find, for example, in our land and water program, we apply for funding and sometimes funding finds us. And we maintain a garden that you mentioned. But sometimes we find an empty lot, or we find an abandoned garden, or we find a school that wants to grow food and they're just not quite sure how to get there, right? So we provide that expertise. And so I think that a lot of what we do is connecting to other people so that we're not alone growing our fruits and vegetables or alone in our garden. We're connecting to the community. And so in that respect, I think pollination is a good title for me and for us.
That is beautiful. Now, Sandy, what would your self-title be?
My title would be Chief Intuitive Officer. So I think one of my superpowers is tapping into my intuition. My sensing is strong. And I feel like the officer part, well, that's, I think, about taking action because my intuition guides me. And I really feel connected with this notion and felt it most strongly actually in my life when I first became a parent. So when I noticed this, it made me really curious about my professional life as well and why I may have had less of that confidence and ease knowing that this was something I could actually tap more easily in my life.
So Queen, having started my career in manufacturing, I know it can be tough to be a female in a male dominated environment. What inspired you to become a firefighter?
firefighter was a position that I could actually be a community hero. It allowed me to help people in mental stress, physical stress, or emotional stress. So it fits well with who I am.
Wow, that's beautiful. Adrian, I loved your description of Michigan Central being a phoenix coming out of the ashes. So can you tell us and describe what is your company doing at the train station?
For those of us who are familiar with the building itself, it has sat abandoned for over 30 years, just sitting there, no one taking care of it. You know, the wind, the snow, the sleet, the windows broken out, and people literally were stripping it, you know, for the iconic symbols that it had within it. So we will be bringing life back to the building by installing all the new, updated, to code plumbing piping systems.
It's going to be amazing. Having seen it in its decrepit state, I cannot wait to see what your involvement's going to be and bringing it back to life. All right, so Raquel, can you share just a little bit of, on the community gardening side, just how much you have fed the community?
Now it's about 2.5 tons. We were really inspired to start building a hoop house. It was new, so it's a little bit kind of lopsided, but we were inspired to find a way for this year in 2021 to extend the season and go even further. So that's a to be developed, stay tuned kind of project that we're working on.
Awesome. Well, we're going to keep an eye on that. That's great. Now, Sandy, can you just kind of share in its very essence, what is human-centered design? And then what does that mean in terms of your job as the lab director?
Really, at its essence, it's a creative way to solve problems. And it's doing that in service of people to come up with novel solutions. And it's the kind of work that doesn't just come out of thin air or a quick brainstorm. There's actually quite a bit of rigor that goes into it. We really want to create something ultimately that's going to be desirable to people, that's something viable to the business that we can actually execute because it's feasible to develop. One of the key things, though, is the diversity of the teams to really help make ideas better. That's, to me, the winning combination because diverse teams are more innovative.
We're all strong women. We're all in traditional male fields. And we know that we have qualities that give us these superpowers. So, Queen, you've mentioned before that compassion and nurturing are two things that make you so effective as a chief. So can you talk a little bit about that superpower for you?
Sometimes in a field such as emergency preparedness or disasters, we leave that behind because the expectation for our organization is to always show up, be brave, take no account for your personal safety. And in order to produce that during a 24-hour period, it's draining. It's draining, but you come in sometimes deficient of energy to complete your job. So as a woman, I'm able to tap into that just as I did with my 3 children. Every day is different. So when we assume duty, we can't expect everybody to be firing on all cylinders. So that opportunity that I take and in my involvement with the people that I supervise, I also take that time to connect with them personally.
That's so true. We all have this need to feel valued and respected and cared for. So that nurturing piece is such a great leadership attribute. Sandy, so you touched on this a little bit, the core tenet of human-centered design being empathy. So how do you take that empathy as a woman to help you make you so effective professionally?
Well, I sense deeply. It's part of just who I am. I feel deeply. I believe they call that sensitive. And this usually has a pretty negative connotation, especially in the workforce. But I'm all these things, I'd say, and still strong and still ambitious. And I think you can do both of those things. So, but getting back to empathy, it can be so powerful to sit, to pause, observe, and feel, and imagine what is going on for someone else. And then really taking action with that understanding in order to help. And that could mean helping create a new product or service. It could mean helping sharing the right information to someone that would be useful at the right time. It could simply just be helping someone take the next step, and helping in any way you can.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
We're definitely singing the same song.
I have to
Indeed.
agree. I have to agree. Yes.
Raquel, you said something once that was so profound, it actually brought tears to my eyes. It was ensuring people are safe so they can exhale. Can you tell us more about that?
You know, we don't expect you to show up polished, to know everything. We don't expect you to walk in, you know, dazzling us and to think that you're going to be put on the spot, that you should know everything. What we want to do is create the space for people to come in and feel comfortable doing these things for the first time in a safe space.
That's fantastic. Now, Adrienne, what one superpower, I know you got a lot of superpowers, but what one superpower took you from apprentice to the first African-American female master plumber?
As an apprentice, because I came in as an infant and I had to grow. And that process still exists today with the apprentices that we're bringing in. A lot are intimidated. They see all these buildings being built. They have the curiosity to want to be involved, but they have no idea what it would take. So we have to take that and nurture that. And I want to be different than the way they treated me because they did not nurture me. I was not protected. I want to make sure that when these apprentices come in, that they are getting the education that they need to get, that they feel safe, and they're being taught correctly. It's very important to understand the safety features because people die on construction sites. So the one thing my superpower is, I feel that God has put me on this path, and I'm supposed to do the best I can for the next generation and the next generation.
I love that. And the red thread that it's across all of these: compassion, empathy, faith, vulnerability, those are strength. So now I'd like to talk about inspiration. So I have a 15-year-old feminist daughter named Kate, and this is a girl who is an 8th grader, gave a 45-minute presentation on gender equality. So she is always looking at strong role models, and so I had to share your stories with her. And you know, one of her comments was just how powerful your presence is and how much you know that you bring to the table. What inspired you to get into your field?
Well, this is an interesting one for me because it was a series of happy accidents. So the type of work that I do didn't really exist as we know it today when I was studying at university and starting my career. In fact, I didn't even know this type of work was a career option. And yet it was actually a really great fit. How I found it was, and how it's a fit, I'd say my curiosity and care for people, tapping into my empathy, my observational and research skills that came through my studies in anthropology, my critical thinking skills that came from my studies in women's studies, and then just tapping into creativity and optimism around solving big problems. They never scare me. I love digging into big problems. And then I also was really tapping into, I guess, making an experimental side of myself, and a mindset, and really wanting to create things that were useful and well designed. So through a series of all those curiosities, passions, talents, I actually found that there was a job where I could practice all those things. And I started doing it, and the rest is history.
That's a beautiful confluence of many, many things. So Raquel, what about you? What inspired you to be in this space?
So for me, it's a happy accident as well. I was in higher ed for 15 years and down the street, lived really close to the community college where I was working. And I was in my community here in my neighborhood and would find young people that were not being recruited and really were disconnected from the community college. And I thought, how can this be? You know, how can we be 3 miles from here and just not tapping into people, and not not being, a presence, right? And I had to look inward, and I had to decide to either I did my job, or I went to my community and tried to figure out the disconnect. And I leapt, and the universe caught me. And in 2019, I came to Southwest Detroit Environmental Vision. So it's a leap of faith, trusting your gut, even when your whole body tells you otherwise, knowing that you have a vision. And so sometimes I'm just so grateful. I look around and I think, I can't believe this is what I do in my community, talking to young people about education. Like it's a beautiful thing for me.
Growing up where I live, it was a lot of crime, a lot of drug abuse, and the only way out was not through college for us because we didn't have the finances to go fund our education at the next level. So it was always a working force that I knew I would be about or be connected to. So I got in that little corner around graduation time, and I had to make a move. It was either be a police officer or become a firefighter. And the relationship that my community had with the police department wasn't positive at the time. It wasn't what it is today, but it just was not a profession that sat well with me. But whenever the fire trucks would come up, everybody was happy. Everybody waved them in, and you could feel that sense of relief that you were bringing to the community. I really didn't know anything about it. It was an option that I explored, and once I got into it, I fell in love. I fell in love because I was able to represent to the community as a double minority. I'm here to help, and I have a very rewarding career. And with that, it was natural. From that day on, showing up, helping people, being seen as a community leader, I was in.
And that's exactly why you are a chief. Holy cow. Love that. Adrienne, what about you? What inspired you?
During a political rally, I was approached and asked, how would I like to make $50,000 a year? And so $50,000 a year is a good money in the 70s. So my response to him was, is it legal? And he said, yes. I said, doing what? He says, being a plumber. And he said, I'm looking for a woman that can get something done. And I says, okay, I'll give it a go. But I never knew the obstacles I was going to be confronted with. So my inspiration is just being around, getting up every day and being able to see what are the challenges going to be there for me. Because that's exactly what they made it. And the more they challenged me, the stronger I got.
So Raquel, it's kind of similar in nature, right? You touch lives every single day, and that's such a huge responsibility. How do you motivate young people who would rather play video games than maybe play in the dirt and be part of feeding a lot of people?
I think part of it is that we have a variety of projects and programs, and we let people right-size themselves into those different projects. We would like to talk to them and see what they're interested in. And we find that a lot of them have a lot of skills. They're actually, like something that Adrienne said, they're actually underestimated. We think, oh, they're going to be young. They don't get enough meaningful work. One of the things that we found a couple of years ago is that they were the best fundraisers. They were calling people in the neighborhood, calling stores and calling former members or people that had attended our events. Young people have no fear, but we may not know that if we don't just give them the work. I like to say, we're not surgeons and we aren't battling fires, and so no one's going to get in trouble, and nothing's going to, the worst thing that can happen is you can kill a few plants, with a lack of water, but there's nothing that's going to happen that, that could get someone in trouble. And so just creating a wide space for them to operate in and letting them find their way.
So at what point did you realize you're making a difference in this world?
When you encounter young women just coming on the job and they're looking at you like, you're a chief.
Yeah.
I want to be a chief. And everything that I do is under the microscope for the good and sometimes for the bad. But I am inspired when I see a young woman look up to me as a possibility. What I do makes her future possible. And I try not to focus on it because there's a lot of work ahead, and I want to make sure that I give them the best opportunity by doing a great job. But sometimes you do have to just take a pause and say, keep going, keep it moving. It's no longer about you. It's about everybody else who's coming behind you.
Sandy, what about you? When did you realize you're really making a difference?
I'm standing on the shoulders of many other women, and I'm going to keep moving forward so that other pathways are open, and hopefully open in much more free ways, I would say, easier, more accessible for other women.
Well, all I can say is thank you all for inspiring countless girls. Now you can add my daughter to that mix, because it's making the difference for the current generation, the next generation, and the communities in which you serve. Throughout all of our lives and our careers, we've had to show resilience, grit, both personally and professionally. And so, Sandy, starting with you, because I know you like big challenges, and COVID has clearly changed the way we work, all of us, in just different ways, but it's changed everything. So can you describe how you were able to pivot, going from designing vehicles to designing life-saving medical equipment?
The team really jumped into action with research, prototyping, testing, refining, and of course, all doing this while we were 100% working virtually. We're used to being side by side, like test fitting things next to each other, and we were doing that over video conference like this, and comparing ideas and notes and building on each other's ideas, and people using materials at home like cardboard and rubber bands to explore what a face shield could be. Once we had the face shields, there was also a question of like, well, how do we get those out to the communities? What's our strategy on that front? So our team really jumped in to help design a distribution strategy and plan. And the way we did that was we were looking at where there were hotspots for COVID. And based on those hotspots, we would connect with the communities and offer face shields so we could get them to anyone who is in need. And it was a really incredible effort at this point. We have shipped face shields to all 50 states and over 22 million of them.
Queen, I want to shift this to, especially, starting and growing your career, a lot of obstacles, I imagine, in how to earn the respect of your male peers, because clearly very male-dominated environment. Do you feel like you have to keep working for that respect?
Absolutely. It's evident every day that I put my insignia on. I walk into rooms, I walk into stations. Even though we've made strides, we still currently have a small percentage, 3% of the workforce are women officers. So if you think about that, it's just unnatural for me to be where I am in this field. So that requires a certain amount of tenacity. You have to stick to it. You can't accept no for an answer. And what I try to instill is, as women leaders, we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm just working hard to put people beside me, to let them walk in my shoes, bring them in meetings, let them be comfortable disagreeing and showing a vulnerable, sensitive side and another perspective, and just building them up, because it's not going anywhere. When I leave here, this is what you're going to be facing. The thing I've been able to do is open the door and let them know that we can do the job. But it's definitely something that they're going to have to continue to improve upon as they sit at this table and just take on this role of upward mobility.
So Adrienne, what stereotypes have you run into, and how have you been able to crush them?
I have been recently asked to be on the board of one of our organizations, and I'm also A week from tomorrow, we'll be meeting with some political leaders to initiate a bill to have designated porta-johns for females on construction sites. I have to continue to prove myself every day. I have to make sure I have to walk that line. I have to make sure that I can't make a mistake because they're watching me. I have to be better. I have to be the best. Being the first, there's a lot of weight that comes along with that. But the thing about it is that I'm going to wear that title proudly. I haven't crushed it yet, but you know what? I got my stilettos on and I'm walking.
We're shaking it, we're not crushing it, and we haven't shattered it, but we're just prepared and we're not going anywhere.
Sometimes you can address a person who's maybe talking down to you, and you suspect it's because I'm a woman, right? Or I'm a Latina, so you're talking down to me. And you can address that person and remedy that situation, but really it's about building the capacity around that. I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to go to the organization. I'm going to talk to your board. I'm going to make sure everybody gets training and that we deal with this for everyone, for all my sisters, not just me. One of the terms I've used a lot is you get in the room and you get on the board. You go to where the decisions are being made. And not only do you get in there, but you hold the door open for other people. My favorite phrase has been get in, turn around, and knock the door down. And I had a person ask me, like, that's such a violent, like description. And I also have used the word infiltrate, right? I'm like, we're gonna get in.
I like that.
Yeah, we're gonna get in. We're gonna shape policy. Same thing. Somebody said, why the word infiltrate? And I said, because we haven't been invited. We will stop infiltrating when we get the invitation. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's about paving the way and knocking down those barriers and being vocal and being honest about the things that we've seen and using all the wits we have to dismantle them.
Queen, you said in the past that you've had this significant mentor. And could you talk a little bit, how did they guide you, and when did they step into the coaching space, and when did they step into that sponsorship space for you?
So my mentor was not even aware that I was watching her. She was the very first female on the job, period, in the history, 100-year history. When I walked into the training academy, she was already at the level of chief officer. Everything about her exuded strength, confidence, and she had very little interaction with me, but she was something to watch. And I watched closely for how people responded to her. And when I had the opportunity, once I graduated as a recruit, I asked her, what is inspiring you? How are you keeping it together? She studied harder. She knew that she had to work out, not ask for help on the fire ground. And she constantly just kept telling me she was not generous at all. She was rough on me. If you want to do what I'm doing, you got to go back and put some work in. So with that being said, the only thing I've added with my mentorship and the program that I'm in is letting women understand that we will be as knowledgeable, but we will not change who we are in essence. We're going to bring this to the room just as they see it. Lipstick, daintiness, compassion. Don't change who you are, but bring the same amount of work ethic that my mentor told me about. So the other unique thing about this group that I work with now, we're trying to bring in younger women that don't have rank. We've massed together a small group of us that do. But when we have to fight this battle by ourselves so much, we get territorial. We don't know how to work with each other sometimes. So with this mentor group, it's like, don't step on your sister. Stop reacting to what they've subjected you to. Isolation. Join hands. Learn not to talk over one another. Learn how to expand on what's in the room. We can't treat ourselves like we're already being treated. And I think this is going to build a generation of women that will be prepared. They will have the numbers. They will have the backing. so you won't be the only one walking in doing a great job.
I'm trying to create those spaces where we can create a lot of introspection and honesty, right, with each other, but with ourselves most importantly. And I think that's like, what is it look to self-coach?
Right.
Can you create the space to look in the mirror and to, before someone tells you, to admit to yourself, like, I could have done better.
So Sandy, as women, a lot of times we'll put qualifiers in our language, or we apologize when we're explaining our positions. Why do you think we do that? And more importantly, how do you think we stop?
I feel like culturally, I was taught to be accommodating. And I think probably many women might be able to relate to that. I think we often apologize to take the heat off of a situation, or course correct something, even if it might not be our responsibility. In my own work practice about 10 years ago, I just stopped apologizing for anything over email. For things, because I realized it was starting to become habitual. And every time I started typing a message that started with some form of sorry, but, or sorry, oh, I'll get that to you, I just delete and rewrite.
So Adrienne, you had talked a lot about this learning mindset that you have, and that you were making people go to school because you're asking the questions and being a sponge. So like, clearly you own your own business. You're directing traffic for a lot of people. You're on top of your game. How do you keep learning?
Just by getting up every day. Every day I'm experiencing something new. Just keep getting up, keep moving forward. Do not stop, because tomorrow is going to be another day. It's going to be something brand new for you. And I'm an example to my children. I'm an example to my nieces. I'm an example to anybody else that feel I've got something they want to hear.
All of you ladies are a coach, sponsor, and inspiration to me.
So I would like to thank you, ladies. This has been the most amazing conversation. The time has flown by. I wish we could have been in a physical space together having this conversation, and I'd love nothing more to continue it. You are all invited to my back porch someday, so we can continue this, and I can continue being inspired by you. And I mean, truly, thank you for your leadership, your service to people, your authenticity, your faith in humanity, and everything that you're doing to make this a better place for people. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing great things continuing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.